Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Barbie Experience podcast. I am your host, Isabel Diepa, also known as Isa, also known as Roller Skate Barbie. If you are new, welcome. This podcast explores our experiences with Barbie. Perhaps you owned Barbies as a kid or borrowed Barbies from your siblings and cousins, or maybe you were forced to play with Barbies with your siblings or cousins. Whatever the experience, in this podcast, I'll be interviewing writers, actors, YouTubers, and many more really cool people on what it was like for them growing up with Barbie. We will be discussing Barbie's legacy, favorite dolls, of course, and why is it that Barbie has become such an icon? Today's guest is a really cool person. They are a YouTuber and doll expert. They also do amazing cosplays and always have the tea on the toys you love. And they're also one of my great friends, so I'm very excited to talk to them. Welcome to today's guest, Claudina.
Holla, holla. Hi, Isa. Thank you for
Hi,
having me today.
Claudina. Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I feel like this is going to be the one of my I love all the interviews, but I'm very excited for this because you are a doll expert and you collect dolls, and I'm like, we are going to nerd out over the dolls.
Yes, let's nerd out today.
Well, I will dive right in. So, for some of you who maybe are new to the doll collecting world, Clawdeena9 is a YouTuber who writes and does videos on reviews of dolls and really a lot of history as well of different toy companies
Yeah.
and dolls, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say I do kind of like you described, documentary style content as opposed to reviews. I try not to share my biased thoughts on the toys as opposed to like here's what the fandom has to say, and I want my videos to really serve as a history capsule. So that way 10
Yeah.
years from now somebody could look back and be like, "Oh, this is what people really thought about Rainbow High at this time or Monster
Yeah.
High." Barbie.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And the proper would be like preview, because I know that
Mm.
I there are a lot of dolls that you have previewed before they've even hit the market, just kind of
Yeah.
explaining what this doll is, what does it have, what are their features, why someone might be interested in it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I've heard the term recently explainer video. I didn't know that was a category of YouTube, but like I guess that's what I am, is an explainer video.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Educational. Yes. I would agree. I mean, honestly, it's so I mean, Claudina and I, we have a really great story of how we went. We met at San Diego Comic-Con last year, randomly in line.
So much fun.
But I was a fan of Claudina before I ever met them because I loved your YouTube channel. I was like
Thank
such a huge
you.
fan and actually learned so much. I actually learned about Monster High and Monster High dolls because of your videos.
Thank you. Well, we did well because we aced that trivia that we had to do for Comic-Con. We got them right together. So clearly I'm educating the kids properly.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Oh well. And to be clear, we met in line to do a Monster High, in-person trivia.
It was like a
Oh,
game show almost where you won cards, or no, they gave you the cards beforehand, but you won something.
we want a
Pin.
pin. We want a
Pin.
pin.
Yes, oh my God, how could I forget? Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to dive in to our questions because I'm so excited. Okay, so this podcast is dedicated to Barbie because I love Barbie and I would say that my introduction to dolls was Barbie growing up in the 90s.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you are a little bit younger than I am, Claudina, and that you are a huge Monster High fan. And you even have a documentary about collecting every single Monster High doll, which is very cool. If you guys want to check it out, you totally should. It's on YouTube. I think the first 2 episodes are out, right?
Yes, yeah, the third episode is coming. That's
Okay.
the big finale. It's gonna be crazy, but yeah.
Yeah. So this is like a really cool journey. So I want to know, what was your experience playing with dolls and kind of your gateway drug, and was Barbie ever a part of that?
Yeah, for sure. So I started, I guess you could say collecting dolls with Disney Princess, Mattel's Disney Princess line, all the way back in 2002. I was 2 years
Wow.
old. I go with the year. So I was two in 2002. And I was obsessed with The Little Mermaid. So that was like my bread and butter. I just thought I was Ariel as a kid. And
Yes.
I remember having, I don't remember the name of the doll. I believe it was a holiday edition Ariel who had a golden tail, and I would put her in the bathtub. Barbie did become a part of that because I was in New York. All my family lives in New York, and I grew up in Florida, and I had lost that Ariel doll up there. And so one of my um, family members who lived in New York sent me a Barbie mermaid to replace the Ariel. Now, I was very specific about loving Ariel, so I didn't want anything to do with that Barbie. I was like, "No, this is not Ariel. No." But I I think I became, and I'll try to keep it brief, but I was really attracted to like the silhouette of Bratz and Monster High because I like that caricature type silhouette. So Barbie wasn't a part of my doll collecting journey until I was introduced to Life in the Dream House in 2013. I'm very influenced
Mm.
by media. Like that's kind of how I play dolls is through the media and the movies. And then I would create stop motions, I guess kind of loosely based off of the character arcs that were created within the media. So within the movies and the storytelling. So Life in the Dream House, I feel like is peak quintessential doll storytelling because it was meta, it was self-aware, and it really revolutionized what it meant to be a part of the Barbie fandom, because
Mhm.
it introduced so many people to it. So I was 12 or 13 at the time when they released the Life in the Dream House dolls, and I got my first Barbie dream house. It was the 2013 version that had an elevator, and I got all of the Life in the Dream House dolls. So um I really fell in love with Barbie during that era because I thought she was so tongue in cheek and so campy and so quintessential Barbie. Um so yeah, Barbie was a part of that journey.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool. And also, I love that your introduction had a lot to do with media and storytelling,
Yeah.
because I feel like growing up, so the very first Barbie media that came around was Barbie and the Rockers. That was in the 80s. And
Compared to them.
yes. Oh my God. The whole thing. I've talked about Gem a couple of times. People know I love Gem. That was like my
Me too.
introduction. So, but it's interesting because that has become media has become such a quintessential part of like introducing people to dolls. And I would say like even kind of a fandom. So that's really, I think that that's super interesting and so also different and unique. Cause I would say like when I was a child, when I was a kid and I was first introduced to playing with dolls, with the exception of Gem, because Gem
Right.
was the media that introduced. When I was super into Barbie, it was all about like the stories in my imagination, because like there wasn't really like any Barbie television shows that I remember growing up. And like I grew up in the 90s. So it was like I remember like in the early 2000s they had the Princess Barbie movies, which by that time I was like, no, thank you. And like you, I was also like very particular about my princesses. I was like, only the Disney princesses. I
Yeah,
don't know why
right.
Barbie is trying to be a princess.
Right, marketing. But yes.
But so with this, I know that a part this experience and this journey with media also brought you into your own journey with media, right? Because you said you made stop motions, and isn't that also kind of how you got started in creating YouTube videos?
Yeah, so I started with toy reviews, and I talk about this in the documentary that I created, with doll reviews because there were so many other kids doing doll reviews. And truthfully, I was a very lonely kid. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in a conservative town, and I wanted validation and attention, and I wanted to feel like a star in a place where I felt like I was nothing and I was invisible. So I saw these kids doing doll reviews, and I really genuinely love dolls. So I was like, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. But I wanted to tell stories, and I don't know why I was drawn to stop motion. Maybe I think kind of like what we're describing is that media was the driving force behind Monster High's marketing and Barbie's marketing at that time. Um, that I wanted to tell stories truly of my depression. So I did stop motions with songs like Skyscraper by Demi Lovato was one of my first ones. Um, and there were just little hints of things of like I was Claudine, I remember the stop motion I did, and I made it feel very lonely and kind of like dark, which I know this is kind of deep, but I I wanted to express, I guess, my sadness of feeling like, I want to be somebody, but I feel like nothing and I feel like I don't fit in. I feel like my dolls is like the only place that I feel like I am safe and like I belong and that I can like create my own narrative. So, um, yeah, I got into stop motions that way, and then it evolved into comedy skits. Very transparently, very problematic for its time. I was 11 when I made these stop motions, so the humor was different, but I would make stop motions based off of me getting bullied. So nobody knew this at the time, but I basically had brats, and Barbie was a would make cameos in it too as different YouTubers, but it was brats and Monster High, and the brats were the people who would make fun of me in the doll community and both in real life. Like sometimes it represented like a comment my sister made to me, like if she made fun of my ears or something, or people who were part of the brats community who would bully me for liking Monster High, and I made stop motions using the insults that were thrown at me, and instead I would have the doll say them. And again, nobody at that time really knew that, um but it's how I coped with the experiences I was going through. And instead of it being so dark and sad, like when I used music, it became a comedy thing. It was like funny to watch Bratz and Monster High go at it, people not really realizing like this was really my experience. And it gave me an opportunity to have the quick-witted comebacks that I didn't have. There's a French term for it, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's basically the perfect comeback too late. So
Oh,
I would do that with my stop motions, and yeah, that's kind of how I got into creating my own
that's
media.
amazing. Honest that's honestly like that just for the fact that you were 11 years old, you were like that's really really that's a very healthy way to be able to cope with I would say the
Yeah,
trauma of being bullied because
yeah. I mean, I
that's
was
yeah,
literally
that's crazy.
playing dolls. I feel like that's the way I played dolls.
Yeah. That's awesome. That wow. Have and so how did that kind of like you just like kept doing it? Like how did that grow and evolve into you kind of creating your YouTube empire for
Oh,
lack of a
thank
better
you.
word?
That's an honor. Well, I guess I would say I always joke that I started by collecting dolls and then I became a doll. So Drag Race, Tumblr, I think we underestimate how much Tumblr influenced today's society. I think they've influenced a lot of our political correctness, like what our beliefs are around like being inclusive. I think they influenced a lot around media and pop culture. So I was really immersed in Tumblr around the years of 2013 and 2014. And that is how I was introduced to Barbie. Like I knew of Barbie beforehand. But Tumblr was pioneering all this different type of media. So I saw Drag Race through Tumblr, and there were all these gifts that just kept coming out, and it became super funny, and like you felt like you were part of a community. And I was like, wait, like if they can do makeup on themselves, like I can do makeup on myself too as a boy. So I started buying the Halloween costumes at Walmart of the Monster High. They were rubies, I believe. Ruby's costumes. And the first one I got was Twyla, Howleen, and 13 Wishes Frankie. 13 Wishes is my all-time favorite Monster High movie, but they had those costumes at Walmart, and I did my makeup first on myself. Like I just used eyeliner that was like in my mom's drawer. And then my sister was really getting into makeup, and long story short, I came out to my sister first, and then she did my makeup because this is when contouring was becoming popularized by modern, I guess I don't want to say modern society, but it wasn't like a Hollywood trick anymore. It was something used at MAC or Sephora. So
Yeah.
she did my makeup for me, and I wore the 13 Wishes Frankie costume. And then it just kind of evolved. I stopped posting as much doll content and shifted into doing more makeup content. And at this point, it wasn't necessarily cosplay. I have a couple early cosplays, but now it was more drag oriented. And then I had like a phase where I was like, I don't know if I identify as a drag queen. Like I feel like I'm somewhere on like a gender spectrum that I'm kind of playing here. And then long story short, was I was getting more involved in mainstream industry and like entertainment media. And I was kind of being pushed by my management at the time to be a little bit more mainstream. They didn't want me to do things related to dolls or drag. And they wouldn't say it quite directly like that, but I got fed up and I was like, nope. And I fired them. I deleted my old Instagram, and then I made my current platform, which is all doll oriented. And I merged what I learned from the beauty industry for so many years and what I loved about dolls, and created what I have now, which is like the cosplays that pioneered. I would say that the cosplay is the hook, like the eye optics that draw people to
Mhm.
the video, but then the storytelling is really what keeps people, because I know so much about dolls. So yeah, I just kind of merged the two.
That is wow, that's so there's so much that you brought in with everything you just said, and one thing I kind of wanna home in on a little is the gender dynamic that you were talking about. Like, to be honest, you are the first boy that I have on the show, which I'm very excited.
Oh,
I wanted to interview more boys that, like, have
yeah.
experience with dolls, and so, even before you got into makeup, growing up, was it an issue for you to play with dolls? Did you have were your parents supportive, or did you have to do it kind of in hiding?
Yeah, my parents were super supportive. My siblings were another story where they would say things like "man up" all the time. They're like, you're getting older, like you need to stop playing with dolls and like get into more manly things. Like especially because I was homeschooled. So I didn't graduate high school. I dropped out. And my siblings were very adamant on like, he needs to go to school. And they would argue with my parents all the time. And they felt like the dolls were a problem until it started making money. And I feel like I learned, unfortunately, at a very young age, the social dichotomy of how people treat you differently when you're making money for something. So my passions had to be uh financially lucrative in order for them to gain respect. So that's why I kind of pioneered this quote unquote empire on YouTube, because when I would tell them, and then they would like brag about me to all their friends and other family members, um that I was making money off of doing doll videos on YouTube. So I had, and I mean, have a homophobic sector of my family that kind of excluded my mom when I came out. And then when I started making money from YouTube, all of a sudden it was more respected. So in that front, it was difficult being a boy having dolls. But truthfully, I think the part that people don't really talk about is if you're not necessarily dealing with not being accepted for having dolls, is the queer community within the doll community, because it's very catty. And unfortunately, I think as any marginalized group, you deal with this feeling of I don't belong anywhere, I don't have anywhere I'm accepted. What's the next place I can get power? What's the next place I can feel safe and feel like I have some sense of control? And I think the
Yeah.
doll community, um, at times, especially for young queer people in the community, there is a lot of people. This is a controversial statement, but from what I've witnessed and experienced, there is a lot of bullying that goes on because hurt people hurt people, and I think that it feels like you kind of become your doll. Like you become really possessive
Mhm.
and you really identify with whatever doll you collect, and it can become personal. And I think that you learn kind of within the younger doll space. I think it's different for us. We don't experience it as much, but for kids in the doll space, you learn a lot of manipulative bias tactics that almost become cult like, because it's your only space that you have, but you feel trapped in it because there's a lot of fear around your reputation. There's a lot of fear around the hierarchy of friend groups within dolls. So I mean, it gets deep. It gets pretty deep. I'm actually trying to study that right now. I'm not a media psychologist, but I know a lot about psychology. So I am actually studying that right now, is kind of like the hive mind mentality, especially as it pertains to young queer people and within the doll niche.
That's fascinating. Oh my God. This conversation has gotten like way more, even more interesting than what I knew it was gonna be an interesting conversation, but even more than what I thought I was gonna be. Just
Yeah.
because
Oh, I
I feel like a
love that
lot
you
of
love it.
people, yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people like, I think, especially with dolls, I think that oftentimes dolls and doll collectors are kind of pushed to the margins a lot more. Like, this is a conversation that I've had throughout this podcast, and it's no surprise, you know, like we met at San Diego Comic-Con. I love Barbie, and in my journalism work though, I've mostly, as far as like culture writing goes, I've mostly written about like comics in the comic world. And so it's like when you come from that world, it's like collecting action figures. It's like it's totally cool if you're a boy to collect action figures and to grow
Right.
up to be a man who also collects, you know, $200 action figures. Like
Yeah.
it's
It's
not weird at
more
all.
there's more of a social acceptance. And I talk about this a little bit in my the problem with the doll community or doll collecting community. And that it wasn't even really about the problem, but it was rather like I did a lot of research on this topic, where why is it that it's acceptable for, like, if you had a ton of Funkos, sure, I think to a degree people are like, oh wow, like they're a hoarder or something, but there's more of a social acceptance versus dolls, where I don't know if you've experienced this, and I'm sure it's a little different for me as a man having dolls, but like I've brought guys over from dates and they do not like that I have dolls. They make comments about it. They're like, "Do you ever get scared?" Like I that's probably the number one question I get asked is like,
I've
"Are you
been
ever
asked that
scared?"
too. I've been
Like,
asked that too. I'm like, no, they're dolls.
I know, like, no, I'm not scared. If I was scared, I wouldn't have them. And like, there's nothing. When I see them as like sculptures and like art, really as art pieces. I think as even as a kid, I saw it that way. But it just goes to show like the difference between I don't imagine that that's as commonly asked. It could, but like if you had Hot Wheels, like people are probably like, "Are you scared at night of your Hot Wheels like coming to life and running you over?" Like, no, no, I'm sure that's not something that's frequently asked.
No, I agree. And it's funny because like I know a guy who is my age who also collects Hot Wheels, and we were talking about collecting, and he was like, "Oh, how many Barbies do you have?" And I'm like, "Well, like total, like my collection is not very big. I have like 150 dolls overall, and that includes like not just Barbie, but like Monster High and some other Disney collector dolls." And I was like,
Yeah.
"How many Hot Wheels do you have?" And he's like, "Oh, I have over 500." And I was like, "Oh, that's a lot more than what I have." Okay.
Yeah. Oh God, I
But
don't even
yeah.
want to get into what I have then.
Yes, but you have, I mean, I agree with you. I agree 1,000%. I do whenever I look at dolls and whenever I buy dolls, I see them, for me, I see them as an investment for one, because like really truly, like if shit hits the fan and I'm like, ah, crap, I cannot pay my rent. And I have had to do this before. I
Right.
hate doing it, but it's like I have sold my dolls online, especially like the older ones that like have gained value because it's like
Yeah.
nobody has them.
Right.
And it hurts my heart to do it because I'm like, no. So it's like I even have like a hierarchy of like dolls that I'm like, okay, this one is going to the grave with me, and this
Okay.
one I can get rid of if I have to.
Right. Yes. I'm the same way. I feel like most doll collectors can relate to that.
Yeah. But no, and to answer your question, like I've had guys ask me if I get scared. Um, but for the most part, they I think they're just like more interested in trying to get laid versus
Yeah,
anything else.
right. Yeah.
So they're just like, "I'm not gonna insult you, so I'm not gonna say anything."
I would.
But I
Yeah.
was very excited because there was, this guy that I've been, like, speaking to recently, he collects Transformers, and I asked him, I was like, "Okay, be honest, be, like, really 100% honest. Do you think that it's weird that, like, I have all these dolls?" Because, like so behind me, this is just, like, the display that I have here, but, like, in my
Right.
bedroom is where I have all of my dolls.
Yeah.
And I also have, like, a big Barbie comforter, and I mean, I love it. My room is, like, very, like, pink. It's, like, the dream room that I wanted as a child,
Yeah.
and I was like, is this weird to you?" And he's like, "I collect Transformers. No, this is I actually think it's pretty cool." And I was like, "Oh." We were talking about people coming over. Yeah, it's it is interesting though, because I think that it's, like, for some people, it's weird, and it's honestly, like, I think that it's interesting, even the interactions that you and I have both had in our differences in gender as far as, like, dating someone, because, like, you're queer, and you would think that, like, being a part of the queer community, that they would, like, not be judgy about it?
Yeah, you would think that, and I guess it goes back to, like, what I was saying about hurt people, and I don't think asking a question like, "Oh, are you scared?" is necessarily an example of that, but I think the internalized homophobia or, like, internalized anti-queerness, is kind of what affects someone's because what it sounds like to me is more of like their projection of insecurity. It's like, "Oh, I can't believe that like, you don't think this is normal, right? Like, you don't think it's normal for you to have dolls." I feel like they're hoping that if I'm aware that this is a quote unquote geeky or dorky or abnormal thing, then I will be less inclined to I guess be judged. It doesn't make sense, but I feel like it's coming from a place of projection and insecurity. And I think that going back to what I was saying about like younger people in the doll space is that that happens in a different way. Like it looks more like, oh, you're not a Monster High fan, right? Because like those dolls are not good quality. Like you realize like integrity toys is like where quality is. Like it becomes this kind of thing of like this battle of um what is most likely to get us integrated into society, into heteronormative society. I feel like that's where a lot of it comes from because a lot of people aren't accepted. I don't know for sure. I feel like I could just be spewing a lot of pseudoscience right now, but um, I think that that plays a role in it, and I prefer to look at things in general as like where can we find common ground, and it's very easy across the board as doll collectors to be like, regardless of what doll you collect, regardless of what your lived experience has been as a doll collector, we all already share a common interest of liking dolls, which regardless of your experience is going to be niche. There is undoubtedly going to be people who look at that as odd. So we already have something that bonds us with that. And I feel like if we had more conversations around like, okay, what are our shared experiences versus what is divisive and like, oh, you're a this fan, you're a fan of Barbie versus blah blah blah. Like I think we would come together better as a community and normalize this a lot quicker if we were to be like, oh, here's our shared experiences, and how beautiful is it to have a community of like-minded individuals who are sharing a passion, and how that would introduce other people to want to join. I almost think of it, and this again, very controversial take, but as like church. Like I think a reason people will be inclined to join church, especially at a lull in their life, is because we know church to be a quote unquote place of community and a place of union. And it's always spoken so highly of. Like it was a miracle for me. It was great. How great would it be if, as doll collectors, like we could be like, yeah, like the doll community is my one place where I feel really safe. And people feel that until they get more involved in the doll community. And like the more involved you are in it, the less I guess the less likely you are to be like, yeah, the doll community is a safe space because you then experience the divisiveness that's within it. But I think we can get to a place of unity is all that really all those words
Yeah.
were to say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I think that it's very interesting because there's it's kind of what I guess this is where this conversation has been going for a little while, but it's kind of like as people who love dolls, whether it's Barbie or Monster High or whatever, um, we are kind of seen as kind of like the outcasts and as outsiders in like regular heteronormative society.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, well, then how do we create a space? Not only like how do we create a space, but also it's like the stronger that we can become like as a fandom in a way, the more normalized we can make it, and then,
Yes.
we could it's not gonna be like it's gonna be like, being a Star Wars fan, which, yes, they have their problematic people as well, but I don't think it's weird to be a Star Wars fan.
No, it's it again, any type of fandom, I feel like you may be seen as geeky, but it's generally more there's not a stigma around it. Whereas I do think being a doll collector, there's this stigma around like you need to grow up or like it's weird. Like there must be something off with you that you would like dolls versus like you're not going to be like there's something off with you that you like Star Wars. You're going to think like okay, so
Mhm.
this person might be a little geeky, but you're not going to think they're a threat or a danger. And I do feel like there is a stigma. Not I think it's we're at a turning point. I do feel like we're seeing a paradigm, like with Sugar and Spice on Drag Race. I think that's an example of normalizing dolls to people. Trixie Mattel, another example. A lot
Yeah.
of it being pioneered by drag queens, I think, but also with the Bratz challenge. I think that's when we saw the shift. Was 2018 when the Bratz challenge took off and we integrated dolls with makeup, and then it became kitschy. Like, oh, it's cute if you have like a Bratz doll on your shelf, maybe even 5 or 6 Bratz dolls on your shelf. Bratz specifically because it was like, okay, this is like now it's becoming a lifestyle. It's cute to have Bratz. Um, and I think that it's we're not to be frank with you, I feel like there's not a lot of credit being given to the actual doll community, and that's why it's happening is because we have such fabulous doll photographers and artists who have caused this cultural reset to happen because they are genuinely passionate about dolls and they're creating imagery that looks cool and dare I say even sexy or like suave and aspirational that has caused quote unquote like normal society or non-doll collector society to look at it as like, oh, this is an aesthetic, like this is hot, this is a brand. The same way that I feel like that's what makes Barbie what Barbie is because Barbie isn't just a doll. She's a lifestyle. Like if you
Mhm.
live the Barbie lifestyle, like fully pink and glamorous and um just hyper feminine, I feel like that's where we are and why I think it's getting more normalized is that now dolls is being seen as a lifestyle. But that's I don't know how I guess my fear is like the same way that drag was normalized into society. It's also becoming like a point of I don't know if a point of contention is the right word, but it's being used now politically as like a danger. And I feel like dolls is one of those things that somebody who maybe is not as progressive might try to shift this narrative around like, well, being a doll collector is dangerous. You know what doll collectors really are. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's what happened with drag as drag became normalized, even though like, nothing's happening at a drag show. Kids going to a drag, at least I feel, most
Yeah.
kid-oriented drag there are literally I mean, and I have a lot of drag queen friends and obviously run in that
Same.
ring.
Yeah.
Um, if there's a kid-oriented drag show, they very intentionally don't use provocative music. They're often performing Disney songs. It's very PG or even G rated shows, just like going to like a Broadway show or something. Um, but politically, there's this narrative being said that it's like unsafe for kids. So I think that we can prevent that as a doll community by coming together and like looking at what our common ground is as opposed to tearing ourselves from the inside. um Again, that was a lot. That was an unexpected topic to even come out of my mouth, but here we are.
I love it. Well, and I guess, with everything that you have been saying right now, my question, and I don't know if this is something that we can actually solve, but it does feel like with that whole idea of like, this is a danger, this is dangerous, it also makes it sound like femininity is a danger for
Well,
some reason or
oh,
another.
yeah, yeah. I mean, same thing with drag because isn't that really what drag
Right,
is?
oh, no, yeah, I'm saying all types of femininity, and so
Yeah,
and I think that with Barbie, I'm saying Barbie, but it's, dolls in general, but, like, having grown up with dolls and having grown up playing, it's to me, I feel like it is embracing the feminine and femininity
yeah.
in a way that is very positive and very empowering, and so my question is, why is that dangerous? Why do we stigmatize it? Why do we say, you need to leave that behind in childhood and like buy beige underwear? You can never what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, like how first of all, and it's I guess that maybe this doesn't necessarily answer that, but something I've learned a lot in my own therapy journey is thinking of things as like, well, I guess I look at life as like, well, how limiting that would be if I thought this way. Like if I had to limit myself to like, okay, but it's not normal for me to have this or to experience this. Like to limit your life experiences in general is like kind of like, huh, like, you only lap this bitch once, dare I say, from what we know. So like,
Yeah.
to limit your experiences um is just something that I guess I would pity or feel sorry for. So to limit to embracing the femininity that I think dolls can bring to a person's life, or to even try to shift the narrative that that's not a big part of dolls, is very limiting to a person's life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to segue a little, because we're talking about gender, and I love talking about diversity. I know that you did make a video about the Barbie fashionista dolls, and I know that they are the most diverse line.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's more of like a personal belief, but even if you were to look at it
I
statistically,
think
like
that's
year
true.
dolls, yeah, they are the most diverse because they have different body types, different genders. I think that's what makes them most inclusive is that they also have different genders that are
And disability and like the
yes,
disability representation.
yes, yes. I mean, I think that I'll let you lead into what you were saying because I didn't let you finish. But even thinking about that, like that should be just the standard of fashion doll, I feel at this point.
Oh no, I absolutely agree. So that is exactly where I am going with this. It's just I think that growing up there was some diversity, but not the way that we have now. And you had mentioned earlier how Tumblr had a big influence, like how you feel that Tumblr had a big influence on kind of a lot of our more progressive social ideas and thoughts. And so I'm kind of wondering, do you think that the fact that now, especially Barbie, is embracing the diversity and really taking responsibility? And I do feel like in part it's because Barbie got so much slack for it, like so much flack for it,
Yeah,
because like in the 90s, Barbie, it was all about like her body proportions, and everybody was always criticizing how like her body was unattainable and that it was not good for like kids to be playing with.
right.
So with that, is do you think, I mean, not is that is I don't think, of course, I don't think that there's any negativity in diversity. But do you think there's any room for criticism with these with the way that these dolls are being um brought out and rolled out and introduced into like people's homes?
I think there's layers to it. So I do want to clarify one thing just for my own sake is that I do want to clarify to anybody who's listening to this, I don't think these ideas started with Tumblr. These are
Oh,
old like ideologies as old as time that Tumblr kind of popularized into the mainstream. But to
yes.
answer your question about dolls, I think that there's the layers here. There's two things I think we can learn. So Barbie, you could say that Barbie has had a problematic history. She there was the doll that had the scale, the slumber party Barbie who had the scale, and then she had the book that on the front says how to lose weight and the back says don't eat. So like she has a problematic history. But then if you look at her today, I feel like people within the doll space, they resent non-doll collectors to society for holding like something that, I mean, kind of like a real person. You're like, well, she said that all the way back in the 80s. Like, that's not what she represents anymore. I think we could apply that to people and have a little bit more empathy for people and their growth. So that's my first thing that I think we can learn from Barbie. And then two, I think um that the only criticism I would have in the way it's rolling out is the quality of the product, because I feel like Barbie, she might have even been produced on a smaller scale and that's why, but Barbie of the 80s and 90s, like the quality of a toy back then is just vastly different than what it is now. I mean, down to the AB plastic density, it is completely different. The types of materials that Mattel chooses to use, and I think that is where um, the again, I keep saying this, but like controversial takes. Rainbow High is doing a good job at diversity because diversity does not equal like there's no exclusion of anything in the product itself. So it's not diverse for diversity's sake because they are still making sure that all their products are of a certain caliber and quality. And they're I mean, again, their products are that of, if not better than dolls of the 80s. I would say we're getting like integrity
Oh
toys level
yeah.
quality on Rainbow High. Whereas Barbie, I think she has nailed the standard of what diversity should look like. And I think they could improve upon it by now elevating the quality. Like let's do away with the printed on fabrics. I don't and the problem though is what would be argued is like, well, then we would be cutting away the affordability, which is a part of Barbie's diversity, is being accessible to any class, status, or economic background. So I think that if that would mean, if it means improving Barbie's quality, means that somebody of like, because I grew up on a fixed income. So like the only way I was able to get dolls is because I made YouTube videos. Otherwise, I would be having budget dolls. So I think that making sure that Barbie is accessible is a part of the brand message and is important. But I wonder if there is a way they can do that and improve the quality. Otherwise, I think the media, again, I still watch some of Barbie's media, and I feel like it's great. They're great storytellers. I really like the diversity and like what Barbie stands for. I think now today she really does stand for unity and inclusivity, and I think female empowerment is at the forefront of Barbie's brand a lot of the time. And I think that she's an example of, like, if we were to personify her, somebody who's really learned from their mistakes and has improved dramatically from where we were a couple decades ago. And there was another study I recently I think I was talking to Elvira from the Doll Circle about, that if you show a kid like pictures of presidents and a picture of Barbie, the percentage of people who know Barbie versus presidents is like, everybody knows who Barbie is. Everybody knows Barbie. Barbie is again like a household quintessential figure. There are US presidents that people wouldn't be able to identify, but Barbie, everyone knows Barbie. So I think that the impact that Barbie has in general and like what she represents, I think they do well. I would argue that they do well at what they're doing, aside from the quality, but that's my gripe as a doll collector.
Yeah. No, and I completely agree, and I think it's also, really interesting because I think that Barbie has kind of the way that Kleenex is technically a brand, but
Yeah.
now whenever we buy tissue paper, we call it
Oh,
Kleenex,
right. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
I feel like for anyone, like if you ask a grandmother to buy a doll, they're gonna say, "Oh, I bought her a bar." It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
they could buy them a Rainbow High doll or a Bratz doll, but it's still gonna
Yeah.
be a Barbie because it's like it's turned into that's what dolls are
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Even if you were to say like I got her a Barbie Bratz doll, like a Bratz Barbie doll, you refer to it as a Barbie doll because she is the standard of like what it means to be a fashion doll.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's super. We are running out of time, but I do want to like nail into talking a little bit about story, because you said that you still watch the Barbie media, and
Yes.
so in thinking about how do we normalize Barbie for everyone, like Barbie collecting, and like so that we can continue to just like love Barbie. Um, what do you think needs to happen? Because I do feel like the current Barbie media is for like children, and as an adult, I love Life in the Dream House. I think Life in the Dream House is actually the perfect example of media that can go towards adults, but can
Yes.
also kids can watch it and enjoy it. And I
Right.
want more of that. Like, what do you think needs to be done? And I'm talking specifically Barbie here, that Barbie can do to like really truly create like the true like fandom fan base of Barbie that
Right.
goes beyond just the doll collectors.
That's hard. I feel like, again, the reason I got into Barbie was because of Life in the Dream House. So I think the media really is at the forefront of bringing in new people. I wonder how much of that will happen with the Barbie movie, and if this is
Mhm.
done right, if this becomes like a cultural phenomenon, I think that will pioneer Barbie into normalization and like everybody wanting to have at least a Barbie, or like the nostalgia kick of like, ooh, I gotta have one right now. Um, I think Life in the Dream House in would not fly today, in the sense that, like, I still love it, I don't see a problem with it, but it's of my time. I think that, today's parents would argue, or people, even anybody who is kind of, like, in a social justice setting, like, looking for, proper representation, would argue that Life in the Dream House era of Barbie is, like, ditzy and anti-feminist because she's not today's Barbie. Whereas I think if they could find a balance between the two, because today's Barbie has some incredible messaging. Like the videos that she's had, like the vlogs
Mhm.
from 2017 onward, are really deep. And the way that they're able to capture these topics in 7 minutes or less is just unheard of in children's media. I mean, I guess there's some examples, but if they were to somehow mesh that with the tongue-in-cheek meta campiness of Life in the Dream House, I think they would have something really great. But I think the problem right now is, I mean, like Steven's Universe, for example, I think is really, it's like a cult classic fandom. I've never seen it, but I do know that it's really
Oh
popular.
my god, I love Steven Universe.
I know, I need to watch it, huh? I see, and that's
It's
like
so good.
that's an example of like really good storytelling, but I think it's still in its own niche because it's been deemed like it's trying to push some type of normalization of things, which is, I don't even know why that has to be vilified. But I feel like, to be honest, if we were to take away any of the political correctness, I think if Life in the Dream House was brought back and just done to be tongue in cheek, I think entertainment will always supersede um anything else. Like if people are able to connect with it and be entertained by it, it's almost like the idea of like pretty privilege. Like if something's hot, people forget anything that they did. They're just like, "Oh, but he's so hot. She's so hot." So like I think that if Barbie makes a really hot show, it doesn't have to be sexual. That's not what I mean by that. But like if
Yeah.
it's something that's like perfect media, um I think that they could get away with being a little tongue in cheek or a little imperfect and maybe not quote unquote representative. Although again, I look at Life in the Dream House and I don't necessarily have those beliefs, but I know that's what parents would argue, is that it's just a bad message for.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't think she's ditzy at all. I think she's super smart. I feel like that's what I love. Okay, kind of going back into embracing like femininity, and I mentioned this before in a different podcast episode, is that um I one of the things that I think I love about Barbie, playing with Barbies growing up, is that she was fabulous all the
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
that was totally okay. And I really hate this idea of like being fabulous and dressing well and having an awesome car and like having your dream house somehow makes you vapid. because I don't think, to me, I'm like, that shows, maybe I'm like, my Virgo, like earth, like
Yeah.
materialism is coming out here, but I'm like, she's successful. Like, I
Yeah.
grew up, I grew up low income as well. And I was just like, I want to grow up to be like Barbie. I want to have my own car. I want to have my own home. I want to have a really cool pool. Like,
Right.
that was that was the dream growing
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
So
Barbie is aspirational. And I mean, it's so there's so much layers in that topic, but I agree. Well, basically, like I agree. Like who I think that there's enough room for Barbie to be that because there's a million other brands that represent the alternative of Barbie, but like Barbie can be Barbie. Everybody loves anybody who loves Barbie likely loves Barbie because she is so fabulous. Like that is the word to describe her.
yes, absolutely. She's, yeah, my icon, my fashion icon. And I think she actually, at one point, I have to research this. I'll put a tweet up and let people know if this is true. But I do think that she was a UN ambassador at one point. I know that they had given it to Wonder Woman, but I think that they also gave it to Barbie at one
No
point.
way. She really is
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess because I love camp, I don't take life too seriously. I think it's all a joke. So I'm just like, it's to me, it's so campy. Like well, imagine if like 2024 Barbie for president. Literally, like Mattel has Barbie run for president. Could you imagine? Like Barbie as like that's camp. I love that.
But they did that though. They did. They had didn't well, they have had a President Barbie, and like
Yes.
I think it was in during the 2020 election, they had like a set of like
Yeah.
campaign Barbie.
Yeah, they had
That,
like a
yeah.
different but I mean, could you just imagine them actually having like a political debate of Barbie versus whoever's actually running for office?
I want that so bad. I think that would be a great YouTube video. I know that she's a lot more serious now. The only thing is that's like, I would want this, but I want her to be wearing a pink,
Yes.
like,
Yep.
pantsuit. I don't
Yes.
want her to be in blue. It has to be like a pink pantsuit, high ponytail,
Oh, okay,
and
yes.
and talking like, all of the serious issues that we need. Because I think that there's room to be pink and fabulous and also smart, because I am those things.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think of, like, Legally Blonde. That's what, instantly
Yes.
like, that's yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, it's funny because you mentioned the Barbie movie, and I that is the last question that I do have. But I think that even before the Barbie movie, we have seen movies that have Barbie vibes. That the character, like the main character, and I would say like Elle Woods is like, even there's even a line. It's one of my favorite movies, but there's even a line in the movie where they say, "Hey, Malibu Barbie."
Yeah,
Because she's basically like what she is. She's Malibu Barbie.
right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting, an interesting topic for sure that I could go on and on about all day.
Okay, so last question. Are you excited about the Barbie movie? And do you have any expectations? And if so, what are they?
Oh my God. Yes. So I am gonna ask you the same question after I finish answering 'cause I'm so curious what your thoughts are. But yeah, I am so excited for the Barbie movie. I think it's gonna be great. I honestly feel like I'm hoping based on their reference to oh my God. See, I'm blanking. I'm bad with names, but the reference in the trailer to uh Space Odyssey, 2000 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, Space
Yes.
Odyssey. Yeah.
Yes. Because of that reference that I think the movie is gonna be referential and my expectation, I could be way off. I have a feeling that we're gonna see Barbie through the eras. Like, it's almost gonna be like a history movie. I don't know why, but I feel like we're gonna get a history of Barbie, um, in this movie. I don't know, but I'm really excited for whatever they have to present because I do feel like, again, Barbie is a cultural icon. Like, we're literally getting, like, an autobiography of one of the greatest legends of of all
Of
time.
our time. One of the great American legends.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And okay, my expectations. I expect it to be awesome, fabulous camp. Like if it takes itself too seriously, I will be sad. I agree with you that it is going to be through the eras. And I started to kind of do some detective work and like basically go through the teaser trailer that they released and kind of like go like bit by bit. And I have found what I think are doll inspirations. So it's like, so the opening scene, it's 1959 first Barbie in the
Mhm.
swimsuit. That's the iconic obvi. I think that the scene where she's like in like doll land, that's a reference. If you look closely, it reminds me a lot of Life in the Dream House. So I think that's like Life in the Dream House world.
Okay.
I so the Ken is where I'm kind of off because I didn't really play with Ken, so I don't really know enough like Ken lore to be able to be like it's this.
Oh, you gotta
I
have Elvira on here because she's a Ken lover. She loves
really?
Ken.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Okay, I will invite her. I think this would be great. Yes. But I think there's the like disco scene that she has like this like sparkly dress, which I
Uh-huh.
think is supposed to be referencing Superstar Barbie in
Okay,
the
yes. Yes.
70s. There is that one scene with the black actress. What is her name? What's her name? What's her name? What's her name? She played Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. I'm pretty sure that's who that is.
Oh,
In the live
see, when
action
you
Beauty and the Beast.
oh. Wait, oh, I thought that was Emma Thompson.
No. She played Mrs. Potts in the live action Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I thought that was Emma Thompson.
Emma
Did she
Thompson. No, I don't think so. No,
Wait, I'm about to find out.
no.
Wait, which live action? The one with Emma
The
Watson, right?
new one, the one with Emma Watson.
Yeah, is it? I'm pretty sure that was Emma Thompson.
No, I thought it was like Tony Award winning actress, which I am ashamed because she actually was like from Fresno, California, and I live in Fresno.
Well,
She has
I
a
mean,
sash.
the one I looked up, it says it's Emma Thompson played Mrs. Potts. Are you sure it's Mrs. Potts? Are you thinking of Mrs. Potts or are you thinking Plumette?
I'm thinking Plumette. I'm thinking Plumette, not Mrs. Potts. I think
Okay, see
Plumette.
that's why. Okay, that's um Goo. Are you thinking of Goo? Although it's not saying
No,
she's in the Barbie movie. Are you thinking of
no.
Madame de Garderobe? Audra
The
McDonald?
one who was the opera singer, Audra McDonald. Yes,
Oh, okay,
I think
yeah.
that's who. That's who.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
It's not saying she's
Audra
in the Barbie
McDonald.
movie though.
She's not in the Barbie movie. I thought that she was the one that has the sash that says Barbie. I mean, that
Let me
says
see.
president for president.
It,
I feel like
she's
such a
not
fool right
credited.
now.
She's not credited. I think it's Issa Rae that's in the
Is that
Barbie
Issa
movie.
Rae?
I think well, she's credited to be in the Barbie movie, so
Okay. Okay, there's a black actress in the Barbie movie that has a sash that says for president. And if you look, I zoomed in, I took a screenshot and I zoomed in and I was like, let me look at all of these. Who are all of these women? What does this sash say? And it is like a presidential campaign, clearly like in the Barbie land.
okay.
So I think that she is either in the movie, I think she's either Christy, because Christy was the first black doll
Right.
invented after Barbie.
Yes.
Um, and so, yes, so I think that I agree with you 100%. I think it is going to be a history through Barbie and like a history also of Barbie fashion from what we have seen thus far.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited for it.
I am too. I don't know what they're gonna give us, but if that is what it is, I'm here for it. If that's not what it is, I'm here for it. Um, it'll be great, I'm sure.
I agree. Oh my God, Claudia, thank you so much for coming
Sure.
on and talking with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was the best. Who doesn't love doll chat?
Yes. Oh my God. That's also like a great is there, I'm sure there's like a channel or a podcast that has that title. I'm like, that's a really
Yeah,
good title,
yeah,
Tall
I'm
Chat.
sure it's a thing.
So really quick, again, thank you so much for coming on to the Barbie experience and sharing your experience with not only Barbie, but with dolls in general. I've learned so much. Do
Yes.
you have any new projects coming out that you want people to know about? And where can people find you on social media?
I do. So, part 3 of my documentary is coming if you're a Monster High fan. I do have a lot of Little Mermaid and Barbie content that I plan on creating. So if you're into cosplays or turning looks, then make sure you follow my social media at Clawdeena. That's Clawdeena. There's a 9 at the end for YouTube, but honestly, if you look up Clawdeena, you'll find me anywhere and everywhere.
Yes, at Claudina.
Yes.
That's okay.
I mean, technically, my Instagram's something
Like,
different, but if you look up Clawdeena, you'll find me.
okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed this conversation. This has been so much fun. And I will talk to you later, Claudina. And thank you so much for listening in with us. I will see you guys next time for episode 5 with our next guest, who I'm not sure who they are, but they will be fabulous, as all of the guests have been.
Thank you for having me.
All
See
right.
ya.
Thank